Bonjour mes amis, this is Alex from Move to France and Teach English.com, where I help you move to France and teach English. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about making friends. The idea of moving to France seems a bit daunting and dangerous because when you move to France, how are you going to make any friends? How are you going to be friendly and talk to people? So I'm going to be talking today about my experience making friends in France and being an expat here in France. All right, so the question is, how hard will it be for me to make friends when I move to France? Well, it really depends on the kind of person that you are. See, I'm not too social, so for me, making friends is a little bit more difficult. But if you're very extroverted, moving to France and making friends in France is actually not so difficult at all. Now, it is true that in France, French people tend to be a bit more reserved. They're going to be less likely to talk to you at first, less likely to share a lot of personal information. But once you talk to them for a while, you can get to know them and they can become very good friends. They're also extremely polite and friendly. So if you do make that first step, they'll be kind of surprised, but also delighted that you talk to them because they're not used to that. And they should respond in kind. I've met nothing but nice people here in France, very friendly people, neighbors, people on the street. If you ask them questions or for advice. So French people in general are very nice, and it's not like those stereotypes that you think that French people are rude or unfriendly. Some French people in Paris itself might be a little uptight or difficult or unfriendly if you walk into, let's say, an antique shop and you obviously don't plan to buy anything there and you start speaking to the storekeep in English. They might be kind of dismissive. But other than that, like if you're talking to someone on the street asking for advice or directions, more likely than not, they will help you. So it depends on how social you are, but it also depends on how many hobbies you have and how much you put yourself out there. If you move to France and you kind of just stay at home and you watch Netflix, sure, it's going to be difficult because you're staying at home. But if you join Facebook groups, particularly expat groups, or if you join like language meetups and you make an effort to leave, like I remember when I first moved to France and I was in Strasbourg and it was very cold outside, I thought to myself, nah, I don't really want to go out because it's cold and it's raining and I'm good staying at home. Well, if you do that, then you won't meet as many people. So you can meet lots of people, not just French people, but there are a lot of expats or other foreigners living in France. I made some Turkish friends. You can make friends from all around the world. We made some friends that were from Austria who were living in Strasbourg at the time. There was one nice lady that was from Vietnam and who settled in France. So you can really meet all kinds of different people. Not just French people, as long as you create that connection, especially through hobbies and things like that. If you first move to France and you don't really know anyone at all and you want to get to know families, you can join like family associations, like expat groups. If you want to make some money, if you want to tutor or babysit, so babysitting for families, you can really get to know the families that way, and the kids and the parents. If you want to tutor, you can get to know professionals in the city. Like I had one student who was from Bosnia-Herzegovina, and I worked with her for a year and a half, and we had very nice meetings at a cafe outside an opera. And so she would pay me to teach her English for an hour or two, conversational English, correct some of her writing, things like that. So you can definitely meet people that way and foster some friends like that. So one other thing I should mention is that while a lot of people speak English in France, it's a lot easier to make friends if you speak French. So that kind of goes without saying. I would recommend, if you really want to make friends, know your French as much as possible. I would say I'm a C1 level, so like advanced in speaking French. And when I'm with my colleagues and they're speaking to each other, I still find myself floundering a lot, like not being able to keep up with what they're saying because there's certain lingo. Even if I know the words, I don't know what they mean sometimes if they're work specific, for example. So I don't know what they're talking about because I'm not working with them in that department or I wasn't privy to what it was referring to. So knowing French will really help you out a lot if you want to make friends in France. It's not a prerequisite. You can definitely make English-speaking friends. And in fact, my best friends here in France, they tend to speak English as well. but I will switch to French sometimes with them if needed. And it's just a lot easier to, like, if you have an English speaking friend and they have friends of their own who come over, everyone will probably speak French because that's the common language there. So it's really important to be able to at least try to hold your own in French conversations. So knowing a really good French fluency will really help you a lot in terms of making friends in France. If you invite people into your home, that's also a really easy way to get to know people on a deeper level. So if you meet someone like a museum or out and about and you exchange your phone number, you can text with them a bit. And then if you feel ready, you can invite them into your home. Now, where I live currently, it's a little bit small, but the place where I lived before, it was really big and it was perfect for like hosting groups to get to know people. And so one of the things that I find is really useful when you're trying to make friends is hosting parties or get-togethers or what they call apéro, which is like snacks and wine drinks for people to come over and to get to know you, to talk with you. And also what you can do is you can have cultural sharing events. So for example, in the United States, for Thanksgiving, we celebrate Thanksgiving the last Thursday of the month. And in France, they don't have Thanksgiving because they didn't have any settlers coming here in the 1700s. You know, that experience is very unique to England and the colonies at the time. And so Thanksgiving is a very cultural event that's only for Americans. So having a Thanksgiving where you invite friends who have never experienced it before, especially if they're French, is a great way to get to know people. We did that a couple times and that was really nice. Other normal events like Christmas party for colleagues, for example. If you're teaching English in France, you might get to know your colleagues pretty well. And so having events at your place that you invite them over to talk about, well, just to spend like a Christmas party. Not on Christmas Day, of course, because they will be with their family, but like a week before, for example, at the end of your semester, it's a great idea to like invite people over and make an effort, you know, creating some food that is maybe French, but also creating some food like mac and cheese, for example, that's typical American, where they can try new cuisine. They definitely love that. So how to make friends when you move to a new country. Find your hobbies and go do your hobbies with people who like the same thing. Find groups on Facebook. Befriend your colleagues at work and then talk to the friend of a friend. You know, sometimes that works. And yeah, just be active. And then once you find some good friends, invite them to your home. And there's just so much that you can share with them, really. I mean, if you come to France and you're not a French citizen, you have so much culture from your country of origin that you can share. And it's really rewarding to be able to share your cultural experience with them. And my experience has been that no matter what background the friends you make are from, they always enjoy this cultural experience. If they're Austrian, or if they're Turkish, or if they're Moroccan, or if they're just French, they will always appreciate how you do things differently, and you may also appreciate how they do things differently. Something typical to make in France, for example, we were invited to a friend's house once, and all they made was melted cheese with potatoes and a side salad. And for them, this was, you know, not a very good meal and like very simple. And they were kind of apologizing, saying, sorry, we didn't know what to make, so we made this. And for us, it was so unique because we never tried this kind of cheese before. We never had it melted like this where you dip the potatoes in. And the salad was delicious in its simple way. And it was plenty of food with the potatoes and everything for the whole family, for them and for us. That for us, we loved the experience. And so, yeah, so definitely sharing your culture and enjoying their culture as well. Going out and meeting people to social meetups, to events. That's a way where you can make friends. I also had someone ask me, Alex, does making friends change depending upon where you're living and the location? And I will say it mostly depends on your personality. But in the south of France, people are a lot more relaxed and a lot more talkative than in the north of France. And I think the reason for this is because of climate. It's a lot more overcast, cold, damp, and wet in the north of France because of that rain and stuff. So people will be indoors a lot more. They won't be sitting on their porch outside because it's cold and raining a lot of the time. And they tend to be a bit more active in working the fields or just going about their business because they're cold and they need to get things done. Whereas in the south of France, it's kind of having that Italian vibe, the Mediterranean vibe, where everything's hot, so you kind of just relax. It's a lot more typical to see people sitting in their chairs outside of their door on the street and just chatting to people who pass by because the weather is good and they're friendly. Again, they're having that Italian influence of this friendly, talkative, chatty nature. When we were in Corsica, people were very much like that. They were very easy to talk to. They even, we were walking down the street once and they started talking to us and they even invited us to have a drink with them just as we were walking down the street because that's how they are. And they talk to everybody who walk along that street. So yes, it is a little bit easier to talk to people and to make friends in the south compared to the north. But it's a small difference, and it really depends, again, on your personality and your hobbies and how much you put yourself out there. If you're willing to do that, and if you're willing to think that French people are friendly and welcoming and not rude or to themselves, they are a bit more private. But if you accept that and you understand that, then you can definitely make lots of friends no matter where you go in France. All right, so those were my thoughts about how to make friends depending upon the region in France. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe and subscribe to the channel. Again, this is Alex from movetofranceandteachenglish.com. If you're interested in learning more about moving to France and teaching English, I'm offering 10-minute free discovery calls where you can book with me on figuring out what job options are out there for you personally to move to France and teach English. I also have a 10-step checklist you can download for free on my website as a form of a PDF, and content on the blog where you can read stuff on the blog about my experience with different job positions and living in France. So until next time. And your word for the day for French, the expression is going to be ben. So ben is written B-E-N, and it means in French like, well. And so French people say this all the time. They'll say yes or no, and yes will be like a ouais, and no will be like a non. And so when they're thinking about things a lot, they will say ben ouais or ben non, as if it's kind of obvious. So if a friend asks you something like, should we go to the brasserie tonight for happy hour? You can say ben ouais, because yeah, of course, let's go. Or are you ready to go yet? Because you're getting ready and you're still getting ready. You say est-ce que t'es prêt? Are you ready? And you would answer with ben non, ben I'm not ready, you know? So this kind of energy of ben ouais and ben non, very typical French, and that's your expression for the day. All right, until next time, à plus.